Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Franchise Frontier podcast, where we explore the evolving franchise landscape. We are excited today. We have a special guest from iFOAM of Scottsdale, Duke Mosley. His record stands for itself. He's a graduate of West Point, which is a lot higher up than most of us can get to, and he's been in successful medical sales for quite a long time. So, Duke, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so when we get going in these, a lot of times I just like to let people get to know you a little bit from outside the franchise, right? Outside of the things you've done. So if we're talking about understanding your journey a little bit, understanding where you came from, kind of give us a little bit of your background that I just touched on a little bit, and then kind of where you went and transitioned into becoming a business owner.
Sure. Like you mentioned, I started off at West Point, and by the way, I was not one of those smart people. I was one of the hard workers that got in. But really, that's where I developed my passion for management, leadership. Coming out of the Army, I spent 5 years in the Army, got into medical device sales, like you mentioned. I've been doing it for 20, 25 years. Love it. But, I was reading a book and came across this phrase about battered career syndrome, similar to battered wife syndrome or battered husband syndrome, where you kind of stay in a relationship just because of something, kids, pay, something like that. And as I read it, I thought, that's kind of me now. Love the company that I work for. Values have changed a little bit, but I feel like I'm kind of tied there because of the equity that I have and the compensation. And so it really got me thinking about, is there something else? And I've always wanted to do my own thing. I've always wanted to take everything that I've learned in my 30 years in business and see if I could put it into action. And so, building a high performance team and a successful business, it's always been a personal challenge to me. On the side, the only hobby that I have is endurance running, 50 mile, 100 mile, 150-mile races. And the one thing that has taught me is that you get most of your growth when you're uncomfortable. And so that seems to line up really well with being a business owner, because there have been some uncomfortable moments, but I feel like that's been when our growth has happened. So again, for me, it was just personal challenge, but I also wanted to do something positive for the community that made a difference. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to do my own business. I'm old enough. I've got enough resources. I think I know a little bit. Let's dive in. And so that's really what that sparked this quest of opening our own business.
That's incredible. I appreciate you saying those things. I think you and I are a little bit alike in terms of hobbies, right? Yours is 100-mile running. Mine is golf. I think they're both really called torture. I think at the end of the day, myself, when I go out to do this hobby, thinking about running 50 miles, I don't know if I like to drive 50 miles personally over time, but I think that's incredible. And I think what we'll probably get into later in the show is we'll talk about, I think that your success from that and your ability to do that probably has a lot to do with mindset, right? As you talk through those things. So as you read that book and you thought to yourself, maybe this is something I'd like to do, some way I can build out a high performance team, etc. Is there anything, or what was your process in looking into brands and figuring out what avenue you wanted to go on?
Sure. I actually went through a franchise broker, and that person gave me a lot of different types of brands and business models to look through. And I looked through everything. I spent a good 6 to 8 months just doing discovery around different types of industries. Most of them I had no experience in, but also some I had experience in. And I was really drawn to, and I probably should say this, but what I call a proper business. Nothing against small smoothie shops or things like that, but I didn't want to be the guy that owned 10 Chick-fil-A's or something like that. That's certainly a great business model, just not for me. And when I really looked at iFOAM, it was just, what I call a proper business with a lot of employees doing things. And I wanted something that I could scale without having to buy more of them or have several shops. I could take one business, get more rigs rather than more storefronts, and really scale the business. And so the scalability of iFOAM was very attractive to me, as well as it was a needs-based business. Anytime you build a structure, it has to be insulated. And so that really got me going down the road of iFOAM. And then once I started doing discovery with horsepower. uh, the support that they were able to offer was just unmatched from any other brother or father company or anything like that. I just didn't see that in some of these other businesses. And so that really took me down the road of iFOAM.
And so to that point about the support inside the brand, right? I know that many times when we talk through that, it sounds bubbly, it sounds exciting and sexy, but I think that there's probably times where it gets a little tough, it gets a little rough, and you have to work through some things, right? There's people that are training you that maybe train in a different manner or whatever that might be. And to your point,
Yeah.
it's probably something that quite possibly you've never done before. You really have no idea. If somebody was trying to come in and train you on medical sales, you could be like, I've done this before. Like, it's fine. So like, as you talk through the support inside the brand on two avenues. First, let's talk a little bit about the field support. I know that there's field support. I know you've sent a couple salespeople, if I'm not if I'm not mistaken.
We've sent a couple of our sales guys into academy, and they've been
Just
there
let me
as well
know.
as our GM.
Yeah, as you look back on that, positive or negative, tell me some of the benefits or even the things that even horsepower can work on, but things that you felt like I need to send my guys here because this is where my guys are coming back more knowledgeable.
Sure. There was two things I need my guys to pick up, especially my sales guys. Number one is sales, which I have a background in and I can teach, but I don't know the iPhone sales process, which is very tailored to what they need. But the bigger piece was the building science. I don't have a background in general construction or insulation. And so knowing the building science, the building envelope, insulation, what you can and can't insulate in the attic and those kind of things, that's what I needed them to get. And so yeah, I was blown away with that world-class training that my guys are going to get. And that goes from the sales guys. I myself went in, GM went in. We have a field supervisor now that we just hired. That person will go in. My lead technician this guy's been spraying for 30 years, and he came back really charged up like, wow, I didn't think there was anything left for me to learn, but I learned it. So from that perspective of the training, the world-class training, I think everything has been awesome. And I've got all those guys, Todd, Anthony, Roger, Robert, Andrew, they're all on speed dial. And I talk to all of them probably once every couple of weeks. Where I think the challenging piece was the kind of the onboarding. It was fast and furious for me as an owner. And there was 10 things you needed to do week one, week two. It was great, but some of the things that I don't have a background in, like marketing, I found pretty challenging. Now that I go back and kind of go through it again, it's just a lot, but it's doable. And I think it's necessary. That just caught me a little bit by surprise. Like, wow, this is a lot. But after that, the actual training, I think, is world-class, something we need. We've let a few sales guys go and hired two more, and those other two are going back to academy because I think it's that value.
That's great. I think to your point, I think that's probably one of the most difficult parts about being a franchisor is there are certain franchisees that have the time, have the ability, have the want to go through a really, really slow process and learn it and take a good grasp. And there's also people on the next phone call that say, I got to get open. I got to get going. I have an investment in this. I want to start to see a return in that. And so I think that, finding that mix in between a lot of times is difficult. I would imagine too, as we've talked through, with the iPhone brand president, as we've talked through, the iPhone corporate team, I would imagine in the future, something comes around where you're right. There's a second stage of it, right? You got back open. Now let's refresh a little bit. Let's talk through some things that maybe you felt like you were drinking through a fire hose a little bit and we moved forward. So that's good insight though, because I always wonder that, because I know that also in iPhone, there's a partnership with some guys on that team that are helping you read blueprints and stuff like that. From that standpoint, in that aspect of the business, how do you feel like that portion of the team has freed your team up to either A, grow, and B, give yourself more time to be in the field?
Yeah. I would say, on that first piece on the integration or the onboarding, I don't know that I'd change it, Dave. I think it was good. I would have probably just, I would have managed my expectations a little better. I knew it was going to be a lot and it was going to be short, but I didn't know how much. And so I don't know that I would change that. I would just maybe manage those expectations and probably paid attention a little more. I went through the marketing stuff, but it was good. As far as the other support, like when we send our plans in, and these plans, none of us have that expertise. I've got a general manager that used to open up IDIs, which is our primary distributor. So he knows all about insulation and a little about building science. And I got a couple local guys, but having two brand new sales guys with no insulation, industry business, get a 45-page set of plans and try to figure that out and bid that job is impossible without the support of the guys at iFOAM who we send it to. They run it through their programs, they send it back. And I'll tell you, that is, it saved us time because for the most part, within a week, we can get that estimate back to that builder and be the first one that submits it most of the time. But just having the expertise. I actually met with a small business owner who has an insulation business in town. They've been open for 12 years and he's not a franchise and he's still struggling to bid bigger jobs from builders. And you've got labor, you've got product, you've got time, gas, fuel. All the insurance, everything that goes into this, subcontractor agreements, and to have the support of horsepower to say, hey, is this something I should sign or not sign, or is this normal, not normal? Run towards it, run away from it, and being able to do those plans. I feel like we just condensed our timelines by years. Again, this guy had been open for 12 years and he still does jobs where he ends up paying for the job because he bid it wrong. And just, having that support and that peace of mind has been awesome for us because my sales guys don't have to spend time sending, if going through those plans. They send them off and they're calling other builders, they're calling other retro jobs, and we're stacking as many estimates as we can get without having to worry about going in and looking at all the plans. And we kind of get that done for us. So I feel like we're cheating in a way, but it's been really beneficial for us.
Yeah, that's incredible. So to your point, I think that one of the benefits, and I think that's a benefit in any franchise, right? Your ability to scale quicker and be able to do that kind of stuff. The other benefit, I think, is the fact that your sales guys, your field techs, or whatever that means, they do have the ability to make a quick phone call and get an expert advice on something. It might not be the best way, it might not be the only way, but you still feel as if you guys were running that as your own business, like the gentleman down the street, who's he going to call? He doesn't have anybody to call. And so, he is learning those things by trial and error. And that's okay too. And that builds good business. You're able to do it by trial, phone call, and error, right? When you build those things back. And so that's incredible.
Dave, he actually said, hey, is it okay if I look in the back of one of your rigs? I'd love to see your setup and how you have it set up. And we've been open for about 8 months. He was blown away at how clean it was and how everything had a place. He's like, man, ours looks like they've been through a tornado and we're not even sure we have everything that we need. We're picking up stuff from Home Depot. So to have that set up from day one when you're open, that you have what you need to do the jobs, the peace of mind in that and sending our people out was huge. And when I see some of our competitors, that's why we're getting their business, because they're not able to do that. They're not able to meet the time constraints that the builders have, or they're not doing what they say they're going to do. And I feel like, of course, we've made our fair share of mistakes, and we're exposing our gaps early on. But I feel like ours are a lot smaller and a lot less than our competitors who don't have that support or backing.
So to your point, you've started this within a year. You're moving forward. You've become a business owner where before you've been not a business owner. So just for you, I'll give it it'll be a 2-part question. But the first part, what in this introductory phase, what was the biggest surprise about business ownership, one, and the spray foam business? What were your biggest surprises that you've came across?
Yeah, I would say one of the good surprises is I was blown away at how much business is out there. That is not something I lose sleep over, is sales in the business. it's all the other things. So I'm surprised that we were going to start so fast and we were going to start getting jobs. I mean, certainly we marketed, we worked, we made the calls to the builders, but the business is there. And that was my biggest concern. So that was a little bit surprising to me. The other thing was just the complexity of the business and just stuff is going to happen. You know, so and so is not going to show up for work. We're going to ding one of the trailers. We're going to step through an attic, you know, step through some drywall. And at first, I was really nervous because a lot of those little things were happening, and I was quite surprised. And now I'm just kind of like, I realize that's just part of the job. That's part of the day. You're going to have these, you know, these guys aren't going to show up. They're going to get some foam on a blind. So this is not going to, you know, going to go over a light. Going to trip a switch in somebody's attic. It's just trying to learn from those little mistakes and minimize those. But that was kind of a surprise to me that that's just the everyday job. Like get used to it, learn from it, keep going forward. But I've also been surprised at how, and this was probably a little bit of luck, but having a general manager that's got industry knowledge and a field supervisor that has local knowledge, I was surprised at how much I was going to need that. Costing calculator, all those things are great. But to have a guy that can flip over a napkin and say, what's the square footage and jimmy it out, and it almost be the same as our iCalc player, that has been a godsend to have both of those to kind of look at. But, you know, he told us, hey, we're charging, you know, in Scottsdale, I know this says this, but in Scottsdale, we're not charging enough for our removal. Our competitors are charging this. If we're charging this amount, we're losing money. If we're charging that amount, we're losing deals. So, you know, I was surprised of the importance of the local knowledge in the industry around where we're at. What kind of foam we need versus what people do, what they pay, compensation for the technicians. You know, we would have figured it out, but having the local knowledge, I was surprised at how much we fall back on that, you know?
And so let me ask you this, when it comes to that, somebody who has industry knowledge, was there a trick? Was it a little bit of luck? How did you go about finding someone who had that knowledge?
Yep. So the first thing I went through Z recruiting, and I worked with Eric, and he was awesome. He said, "Hey, Duke, I'm going to send you a few guys. I'm going to bet you that one of those first two are going to be a guy." And sure enough, the second guy was this general manager candidate that had opened IDIs for 10 years and knew everything there was to know. And so I knew early on he was probably going to be the GM. So once I got him, we went straight to IDI. We're fortunate enough to have an IDI right down the street in Phoenix. And so I met our representative there, Viper Grazzini, and said, "Hey, look, you know, I'm going to park my truck out here and find a couple of technicians. I'm just going to watch the chucking of trucks that go through here." And he said, "I'll do you one better. I've got some guys." And so we were able, once we got into the industry and found a couple of folks, they knew everybody. And so Ruben, our field supervisor, we found him through IDI. And then he has said, "Hey, here's two sprayers you want to talk to. Here's two helpers that are really good at prepping buildings." And so now, once we got in that network, it was much easier. And I think part of that was luck, but Z recruiting, IDI, and then we got the rest from within.
You know, Duke, it's incredible to hear this conversation, because I did another podcast with somebody from Stand Strong Fencing, and almost identical. They talk about when they go to the supply house, when they go to the whatever, they're meeting people and guys are standing around, they're talking, right? That's the good old boys club, or the good old girls, like the girls club. That's what they're doing. They're talking. They might not be able to help somebody with a job, but they know a guy that's looking, and they know a guy who knows a guy, right? And I think that's probably a testament. It's probably the same in roofing. It's probably a testament to home service, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, when you talk about, we always joke around about the fact that sometimes home service can feel a little bit unsophisticated, but it's been built on this foundation of people that do good work, right? That work hard. Yeah. And so, like, when you find those people, there's people unlike yourself, like the gentleman down the road, who he's been working for 12 years and he's doing a decent job, but he probably doesn't have the ability to scale, right? He sees that.
Now the reason we have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. I'll tell you, you kind of reminded me of another surprise, and that's you know, when we were camping out at the IDI, kind of seeing folks that go through, you know, we call them chucking a truck. That guy that wraps his truck, gets a set of foam and sprays it and goes, gets two of his buddy to help him. And, I said, hey, which of those guys are struggling? And so we found one of those guys and I brought him in, and we were originally thinking maybe this guy could come work for us and spray for us. And he sat down across from me and he said, dude, he goes, I don't have any sales experience, but I've got all the building experience in the world. I know how to talk to builders. I know how to spray. I want to be a sales guy. Here are the 3 sales books that I've read, but if you give me a chance, I'll be your best sales guy. And he is our best sales guy. He didn't know jack about sales. We're teaching him that. He'll go to academy, but he could talk to a builder. He knows about building science. And I have found that my other sales guy, who has everything to know about sales, will talk to the customer and he'll do 3 different estimates and try to sell them one. They'll take the cheapest one. My building science guy, my power sprayer, will talk and listen, and he'll give one estimate and he'll sell it. So, just getting in the network and finding guys, and the surprise was that you don't have to have guys that are experienced in sales. You got to have guys that are hungry to make money. They're willing to learn. They're coachable. And for me, the fact that they know attics and building science and which wall to spray, gable walls, that was huge. And so he's made a really, really good sales guy.
And to your point that we talked about earlier, right? Those people like yourself, they have a different mindset. He knew that the magnifying glass of the sale was going to be on him. And he's like, I don't know anything about sales. However, and this is something that you find in any service or probably any sales, you're the same way with medical sales. When you walk in and you can articulate and communicate to the person that here's all these options and here's all the things that everyone's going to tell you, this is the right one. And when you can say that and the person across from you feels like, I believe this person is telling me the truth, like you said, they're going to go with that. It's going to be 500 more, 1,000 more, whatever. I know it's going to be done right and done the right way.
Yep.
So my next question to that point, in that same amount of time, what are a couple challenges that you faced that you just kind of came out of nowhere, or maybe they didn't come out of nowhere, but you faced them, you're working through them, or you got them all accomplished?
I'd say one of the challenges for me is, I call it managing the worry. Like, I am a semi-involved owner, got a business partner, we are self-funding. So we are all in, chips on the table. This has got to work. I've got a GM, got a crew. So I'm a semi-involved guy. I'm here every Monday and Friday. And I manage pretty much the sales, the numbers, the P&L. GM does everything else in operations. The field supervisor manages the crews. My wife does payroll. But within that, there is a lot just to think about and worry about on a daily basis. And so, managing the worry has been a challenge. It is a roller coaster. Some days I feel like we're going to own Arizona. We're going to be the number 1 insulator. And then 6 hours later, it's like, oh, can we make payroll? Like, is that going to happen? And, I got to go run down this check from so-and-so. So managing the worry has been a challenge. But the longer I do it, the better I get at it. The other challenge, and the bigger challenge, is getting the right people in the right seats on the bus. You got to have a good team, and you got to pay in because you get what you pay for. And so that is a constant worry of mine, is that, we've got really good guys. We got great applicators, good sales guys, a great GM. And that's when I'm the most paranoid. Like, it's all going good. Everybody's good. Things are going. Sales are up. It's just keeping those people happy, engaged, and getting them on the bus. And that was a challenge, because I'll tell you, I'll be up front, tell you, one of the biggest mistakes I made is I hired a friend as a sales guy. And I knew in my gut I shouldn't do it, but he was a good sales guy. And he was the worst. It was the worst decision I made. We ended up having to let him go. But that was a big mistake. And so, getting the right people in the right seats in the bus, make all the difference in the world. And, I think the other challenge, and we're kind of getting there, is how do we expand or grow at the right time? I know sometimes, like, we started out with a blowing rig and a spraying rig, 1 sales guy, GM, and a crew of 3 people. And now we've got 3 spray rigs, a blowing rig, 4 crews of 3 people, a field supervisor. I mean, this thing is growing. And it's kind of like, when do we pull the trigger on the next rig. And so our philosophy has been capacity before demand. If a builder comes to us and says, how many homes can you do in a month? I'm going to ask them back, how many do you need us to do? Not, well, I think we can do one a week, you know. And so, but it's, you kind of, I've learned it's a challenge to figure out when you hit that button to go. I'll give you a prime example. You know, we wanted to stay away from, you know, our customers are retro current homes that need to be re-insulated or insulated. New builds, which is our sweet spot. About 50% of our business is new builds. Easier to spray foam a framed house than it is to get someone to add it. And what we call light commercial, right? We don't want to get into the big stuff. We need a 600-foot hose and all the equipment. So we've done a couple of Filibertos, the animal clinic. So we call it light commercial. And we just bid a spec home job that's 16 homes. They give us 29 days to do 16 homes. And if we get it right, there's 484 homes behind it. And so
Here comes that worry.
as soon as we hit send on the bid, I just said, oh crap, man, what if we get it? You know, how do we do that? I mean, the margins are slimmer because it's more volume and just, it's a, you know, I say your ego ain't your amigo because I'm like, we're doing it, you know, we're going to get it and take them all. We'll get all 500. But, you know, managing that's going to eat up a rig. That could eat up a rig. It's a 1.5-year project. And so if we take one rig of our 3 and put it on that with a smaller profit margin, we're missing costs. We're missing opportunity here that we could do. So figuring all that stuff out has been a big challenge. You know?
Yeah, I think the way it sounds, a lot of the managing the worry, it's the worry of the unknown, whether that be, I don't know enough about the business necessarily yet. I'm learning the business, or the unknown of, are we going to get these 500? Yeah. And to your point on that spec home, you know you're going to get it because you're going to do a good job. Your guys are going to concentrate. They're going to do a really good job, and they're going to say, yeah, this is great. So you're worrying about what you should worry about, but yeah, there's always ways to go through that. You know, you mentioned something earlier about the general manager. I'm thinking back to your process of being in development about iFOAM. Did you have a conversation where you said, hey, listen, from my build out, I'm going to be semi-involved. So they said, okay, if you're going to be semi-involved, that means you have to know you're going to need to hire someone to run the business. And so how did you think through that in terms of cash flow, in terms of all those kind of things or was that part of your business model to say, this is my business model as a semi-involved owner. I know that I need X, Y, and Z. How did you think through that?
It was the business model, and horsepower or iPhone was hugely, it was a big help with that because they said, hey, if you're going to be semi-involved, here's what you need. And man, they were spot on. And they said, you have to have a general manager who's going to run the day-to-day business. And so, you know, I said, I got the GM and it was a load off. Like, I don't think I would have ever found this guy without help from Z franchise, from Z recruiting, who said, you know, I know these guys. I recruit for iFOAM. I know what you're looking for. But once I had him, his first question to me was, all right, semi-involved owner, how are we going to divvy this up? Well, let's outline our roles and responsibilities. And I was thankful he did that. I was kind of already going down that road, but we sat down and I said, listen, you know, there's things I know that you don't know, and there's things that you know that I don't know. We're going to have to work together to get this thing going. But I gave him my vision that, you know, and our big goal is to be one of the top 3 insulators in the state of Arizona by the end of 2026, which I think we're well on our way to get there. And I said, I don't know exactly what it looks like, but that's where we're going. And I'm going to handle the numbers and the sales. I need you to handle everything else, the operations, and I need you to tell me what you need to be successful. And then we'll have a business conversation. And I said, I'm coming in on Mondays. I'm here from 5:30 to 1:30 every Monday and Friday. I said, if that's too much and I'm in your way, let me know. If it's not enough, let me know. So we have a really good working relationship. He tells me what he needs. I tell him what I need. And we're still kind of ironing out those roles and responsibilities. Like, we're to the point now where we're thinking, okay, like, I don't want my sales guys calling these builders asking them for a check, because the builder doesn't know. He's like, call Sally. So I'm like, okay, maybe we need our Sally. So our Sally can call their Sally. So, and I don't want the GM spending time, you know, lighting up these builders. So we're kind of saying, okay, is it time to bring on somebody that does our accounts receivable, does our payroll, those kind of things? But we work really well together. But I think having that open, transparent working relationship with your general manager is key. when I talk to some of the guys in iFOAM, some of the other owners that are having a difficult time, I think it's because they're not, and this is just me. I don't think they're involved enough. To me, semi-involved is at least 50%. It's not, hey, I'm gonna put the money in, turn the business over to you, and let me know send me the checks every Friday. That is not it. And so I love it. If it were me, I'd do this full time. And the other part of the reason I did this that I didn't mention is this is my exit to corporate America. Like I would like nothing more 2 or 3 years from now to be doing this full time and have 2 more horsepower franchises. But you got to have that roles and responsibilities discussion if you're a semi-evolved owner, and you can't turn it all over and think that it's going to go well, because there's stuff that I'm good at, the sales and the numbers, and there's stuff that he's good at. He'll come to me and say, "Hey, Duke, you know, if we order a truckload of foam that's $64,000, it saves us $160 per set. We'll burn through that in a month and a half." I'm like, "Hey, I wouldn't have thought of that. So let's look at it and run the numbers." And we just had our first truckload delivered, and so now we'll save that much, and I know we're going to use it. But on my own, I could have done the calculations, but I wouldn't have known we're going to burn through that, how we need to burn through that, where to put it, how to stack it. We need a forklift. And so together, I think we got a really good thing going. But you got to be involved. You got to get involved.
When I hear you talk about it, I also think from just being a part of it and seeing it from a high level, looking at, it's always interesting that you're running a semi-involved model. You're growing quickly. However, what you didn't do was say, this is where I want to get to. Therefore, I need 4 trucks. I need 6 crew people. Right? You're building the plane as you're flying it to some extent, right? You're adding more crew members to the plane. And I think that's really cool how you're doing that, in terms of, you let it ride out a little bit as best you can, and you pull in and say, okay, now we do need accounts payable because this is where we are. So I think that's good. And I would imagine that your general manager feels very much like a partner in that business as they go through that scenario, because you are their ideas, their solutions about the business, you're putting into action to make them feel as if, hey, we're in this together.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. His expertise, which we desperately needed to kind of let us know when. But he says, listen, when we start booking jobs, when we're booked up for 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks, we're going to start losing business. So I say, okay, great. Where are we at? And he's like, he called me the other day, said, hey, we're 4 weeks out. And sometimes those jobs change and move. So we know, okay, maybe that's time. But without that industry knowledge or that expertise, we would have probably lost a lot, because the builder said, hey, look, we can start 3.5 weeks from now. Like, we need you tomorrow. But I know now that we've got 3 rigs, we can double up on one home with an additional rig. And so I would have never probably thought of it like that, but having his expertise to say, yeah, hey, it's time. All right, let's look at it. Let's run the numbers. Let's do it. But yeah, we didn't. And one of the other things I did is I just, I know this is a successful business model. I know that there are iPhones out there that are thriving. So that tells me it can be done. And so I looked at the ones that were number 1, 2, and 3 and said, what do they have? We're starting there. Now, that was probably not a great way to do it, and we probably got a little bit out front of our skis, but I said, hey, why not start with that stuff? And so we knew we were going to get there fast, and we had a few gates we wanted to hit. But I'll tell you something I did that I think probably some people frown upon it, but I offered my GM some equity in the business. He's a guy that I want to build this business around. I want him here for long haul. And so each year he gets a little bit more out to 5 years. And so he knows he has a say in this. And that is kind of, that's helped us build some trust. And I know he's making decisions now, not like it's my business, that it's kind of our business. And so I think that helps. I know, not a lot of people want to give away equity. I know it's probably not the best thing to do, but I see that as, I want long-term success, and I want a really good chance at making good money, not a great chance of not a small chance of making a lot of money. And so I'm going to spread that out a little bit. We're going to have guys that we hope that will throw away their resumes and be part of iPhone for the rest of their career. That was kind of our vision we laid out. So, we'll see if it works, but that's the plan.
That's definitely some incredible insight and a good way to look at things. So as you look at it, if you were going to give any aspiring business owner advice before you get into a franchise, what are some things you should consider, and what should you know or ask before taking the leap?
Yeah. I would say, um, ask as many questions as you can through discovery. I was on all of those validation calls. I asked a ton of questions, even if you think it's a dumb question. Ask a question. So, do your best and know what you're getting into, but know that what you are getting into can be done, especially if it's with iPhone or horsepower. I think the business models have been proven out; they can work. So have that confidence. But I'd say my advice would be people before process. The people are the most important thing about the business. If you don't have the right people, doesn't matter how good your processes are, how good your trucks are, your equipment are. If you don't have somebody on the end of that gun that's putting that foam in, it looks good and it's the right amount, you're dust. So the best piece of advice I give, get the right people on the bus and the right seats. Number two, keep moving forward. Everything is figure outable or fixable. I mean, we've hit a ton of bumps. We've exposed a lot of gaps that we had. We've stepped through people's ceilings. We've stepped through drywall. So just keep going. Like, the lady said, "Hey, I want a discount." We gave her a discount. She came back to me 2 weeks later and said, he stepped through in the closet. I had $375, dry cleaning bill. We paid her dry cleaning, got the 5-star review, keep going. So it's all figure outable. You're going to hit a lot of bumps in the road. Expose them early, keep moving forward. And I would say, especially as a semi-involved person, manage your energy, not your time. Um, there's plenty of stuff you could spend time on and doing, and I can go down a rabbit hole on a marketing thing on a P&L, and it's like, it's just not worth my energy. So figure out where to invest your energy in the business. I run our L10 meetings on Friday mornings. That's a high value, high energy. I'm in front of my sales guys. I'll drive out, get in the attic with somebody every now and then when it's 120 degrees in Arizona, just to give them a $20 gift card. Manage your energy, not your time. And then I'd say lastly, be involved, be engaged. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You can pour as much money into this and hope that it does well, but you gotta engage in the business. You gotta roll up your sleeves and get in there and love it, because doing it from afar, in my opinion, you're just handicapping yourself.
That's incredible.
I know that doesn't have a lot,
and I think that's great insight. I think it's good to know that, you've bought into the things that have been given to you, the L10 meetings, those type of right people, right seat. And I would hope that that's going to continue to help drive your business and drive it successfully into the future. So I know that this was. Go ahead.
One more thing. I forgot one thing. This is important. I would say lean on the team. Like I said, I've got those guys on speed dial. Anthony's been out here. Robert's coming out here next week. I mean, those guys get in our trucks. They look at our procedures. They know this stuff. They've been doing it, and they've got the best practices from all the other owners. And so same with Todd and iCalc, and Brandon was our sales coach. I talked to him. We had standing calls once a week. So use the resources that you're given. They make a difference. If you don't have a process, use that process first, and then, perfect it. But go with what they've got, because it's been proven to work, and it's saved us just a ton of time.
That's incredible. Well, Duke, I appreciate your time, and I thank you for all the insight that you've given us. And I look forward to talking to you in the future. So, yep, I appreciate your time, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you, Dave. Have a good one.